It's the
Share.
no. First, I want to display. I want to display the slide show.
Yes. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah. Oops. And then I need to share it. So I'm going to go here. Share.
If you want to announce that there are seats in the front.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Jeff, are there any more chairs?
Okay.
Any more chairs? No, okay. Yes, you could. I mean, there's 3 up here.
And there are a couple
There's
of them
1
up
in the
there.
middle. Yeah. Okay. So you guys only did see the last day.
Maybe Joel has more chairs.
Ready? Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. Glad to see everyone. I think the last time we were here, we were downstairs, the HOA meeting in October. With me, so I'm Tony Gonsalves, your town supervisor, and the one that's been working with the Oakridge expansion, everything related to Oakridge. And this is Nisha Singh, our controller.
Hello, everyone.
And then we have Robert Flores from Delaware Engineering. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off the presentation I put together, and then we'll have some Q&A. And welcome to the folks on Zoom. Hopefully you can all hear me okay, assuming our technology is working. So let me move on here. So I'm going to start by, 1 second. It's not moving. Wait, it's not. Oh, I know. It's moving on here, but not there. So. Oh, here. This. Here we go. Okay. All right. I'm gonna review some data points and highlights on things that have happened over time. So, and this might be repetitive for some of you who have been here since the beginning of the project. But in August 2020, the New York State Health Department lowered the PFAS levels. Everyone knows. Who doesn't know what PFAS is? Okay, good. You all know. So they lowered the PFAS levels to 10 parts per trillion from 70 parts per trillion. And just to give you some comparisons around that number, in Connecticut, it's still 70 parts per trillion. So New York State were the first state to be aggressive about doing something about the presence of this chemical compound in the water. The federal government is actually now finally considering, the EPA is considering lowering it to 4 parts per trillion. So that's going to impact many more water systems around the country. So in May of 2021, so we were required to put together a design to mitigate for PFAS. So in May of 2021, Delaware Engineering worked on the design, and the plans were submitted to the Westchester County Department of Health. That process was very iterative, a lot of back and forth, a lot of meetings, a lot of delays on the part of Westchester County Department of Health. because of personnel issues and because of the influx of a lot of water systems doing the same thing that we're doing. We decided, since we were going to expand the plant, to improve on some other things that the plant required. And I'll let Robert speak to that, but basically at a high level, we included an upgrade that the Department of Health was requesting from us, which was better storage of the chemicals. So we have a very tight chemical storage area. And so this, as part of the building expansion, there's going to be a storage location for the chemicals. There's also going to be an improvement on the where the chemicals that are in use for treating the water, where they are located. And then there were additional upgrades, and maybe Robert, you want to talk about like the pumps.
We have the pumps right now.
Yeah. So we added go ahead.
So I don't know if I remember, but so your water plant has a series of pumps that get the water from the water storage tank out to the water system. That's how you get your pressure. Those pumps were old and tired and in a very cramped space that didn't allow for good maintenance. And some of you have been lucky enough to go to the water plant and you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the project included replacing those pumps and moving them into the new building. And plus the chemical feed that Tony was mentioning.
Right.
Yeah.
So so that tight cramped area, which I've been in, and you have, I mean, it's very tight. And we're putting in new pumps. We're putting in even a redundant, some of the pumps are going to have some redundancy.
That's right.
That doesn't exist today. So we decided that since we're redesigning this expansion to include all that in the project. The Westchester County Department of Health finally, and the State Department of Health approved the plans and specifications for the upgrade August of 2023. So that's a full 2 years and 3 months that it took to get the approval. During this time, we had a parallel effort going on to apply for grants to help pay for the work. So we applied for a federal EPA grant through Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney. He helped us with that. It was the first time that it's a congressional earmark, which had not been done for the prior 10 years. So it was the first year in 2021 was when these earmarks were made available to congressional districts. And we were fortunate to be able to apply for it, as well as the New York State Environmental Facilities for Water Infrastructure Improvement Act, or what we call the WIA grant. We applied for that in November of 2021. So we were awarded both grants, both the federal EPA and the New York State EFC grant in April of 2022, in the amounts of $1.8 million and $1.16 million, a total of $2.96 million. We received, once we were going through the grant, the due diligence with the grant work with EPA and EFC, they gave us approval to go forward and start the bid process, right? To put the design out to bid so we get contractors to give us their quotes. The town board authorized going to bid on this project September 18th of 2023. Bids were received December 7th of 2023, and there was a recommendation to award by Delaware Engineering. So part of that recommendation is, and maybe Robert, you can speak to that as to what you do in terms of determining who gets the award.
Right. So you go out to bid and it's a multiple prime contract because of New York State law. So you have a GC contract, an electrical contract, and mechanical contract. And so you have multiple bids for each one. So that's why, for one, you kind of know that the price you got is a good price because you had, 4 or 5 contractors bidding each one of the primes, so you can compare their bids and total cost. So then the low bidders of each prime, we make sure they're not on the barred list, make sure they have completed similar projects, similar size, they have bonding, insurance, and the equipment to do the work. Because the last thing you need is a contractor to start the job, they can't finish the job, right? So that's the due diligence that goes with it, and we follow through with a recommendation to award that the bid is correct and should be awarded.
Right, so that
Question I got about a similar process. So the bids and the work to be done.
actually, if you could, that mic is working, right, Sean? So for the folks that are on Zoom, if you could stand up. I mean, yeah, 'cause we're gonna make sure they can
So
hear.
I just want to make sure. So the work that we're talking about, that the award was for and the bids are for are specific to upgrading the plant that you just described, this small space that's now going to be located somewhere else and bigger and can do more things and has a better
Right.
capacity. Is that what we're talking about?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
And the main reason for the expansion is because the design that is approved by the health department to get rid of PFAS from the water is going to require two 16-foot tall, 8-foot wide canisters filled with carbon. And so the water is going to flow through that carbon, and during that process, the PFAS chemical compound gets removed. Now, just to talk about that a little bit, so every quarter, and I think I have that in one of these slides, but every quarter we test for PFAS, but we're testing it at the source, at the wells. We have 4 operational wells. One is a standby well that we don't use currently. It's only for emergencies because it's high in iron and manganese. So we have 5 wells that work, 4 are active, 3 are in use at any one time. So every quarter we test all the wells, and the wells that exceed the 10 parts per trillion, we then don't use that well and we switch over to a different well. But the water leaving the plant, which is a combination of water from 3 wells, is below the 10 parts per trillion. It's been averaging around 7 or so.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, so the water leaving the plant is okay per the new threshold set by the state. But the fact that there's, a higher level above 10 parts per trillion in the source and on the ground,
Right.
they want us to do this, right?
Okay.
So the town board will now need to decide on whether or not we want to award the contract based on Delaware Engineering's recommendation. And, we expect to do that at the next town board meeting, but I'll talk about that because we had a little issue come up and it's going to be delayed. The expectation is that we'll start construction in May of 2024 if everything still goes according to plan. And it'll take about a year to complete the project. Okay. Any questions? Anybody else want to come up? I mean, I'd rather save the Q&A for later, but if there's anything specific to what I just covered. Now, until the project is completed, because I've gotten people, who say, why is there another notice, that says that our water is exceeded the health department's limits? Well, that's because it's a health department requirement every quarter that any of the wells test above 10 parts per trillion, we are obligated by the health department to post the notice. And they actually have to review the notice. So VRI, the operator, they write the notice, it gets sent to the health department, they have to review it, and then it comes back to us to post. And so that's going to continue happening every quarter for as long as the well tests above 10 parts per trillion and until we get this new system in place. So please do expect these notices every quarter. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone when you see a notice that this is why. But the water leaving the plant continues to test below 10 parts per trillion. And we test for that every quarter. So project funding. Back when we first, in August of 2021, there was a public hearing related to this project and the expansion. We didn't process a borrowing resolution until we were sure, because we weren't sure about the federal grant and the potential implication of committing to borrowing when we're applying for the grant. We didn't want to risk the award of the other, right? So we had held off on that, but then it was determined in our conversations with the federal EPA and at the time Congressman Maloney's office that it was determined that the borrow resolution would not impact the federal grant. So a bond resolution for the WIA application, which is the New York State Environmental Facilities Corp grant, the EFC grant, they require a bond resolution. They want to know, how are you going to pay for this project, whether or not you get the grant, right? They want to know, is the town committed to paying for this project? So we had to say yes, we're committed to, it's needed. So in order to be able to apply for that grant application, a bond resolution was passed on at the October 12th, was placed on the agenda, sorry, for October 12th, 2021. And it passed, right? The board agreed. And at the time, the project cost was $1.93 million. So the borrowing resolution or the bond resolution said that the town is going to fund $1.93 million towards this project. Regardless of whether or not we're gonna get grants. So that bond resolution, again, was back in 2021, and there's a public hearing for that. We applied for the New York State EFC grant by the deadline, which was November 22nd of 2021. So on the town board meeting in October 12th, we had two items on the agenda. One was the public interest order, which is a requirement when you have such projects that basically declares that it's in the public's best interest to proceed with the upgrade project, with the project. And number two, the resolution authorizing the issuance of bonds. And that's the link to the town board agenda if anyone wants to look at that. And I'll post this to our website, or if anybody wants to email me and wants me to email a copy to, I can do that as well. Now, we went out to bid, we got back the responses to the bids, the bid requests. And again, there are two projects essentially bundled. We figured while we're doing this work for PFAS, right, which was under this WIA application, the 18592, that those are the numbers we use to differentiate between the two New York State grants. And the other one is the WIA 18893. So so basically within the bid specs, we had both projects. We had the chemical feed systems and the storage extension of the building. And when we initially got the bid for all of that, it was a $4.2 million total. So New York State EFC came back to us and said, okay, you have to, because the grant that we're currently working on is for this project. They want, so the last board meeting, when we had that resolution, the bond resolution, it had a 4.2, and that's the one that we were gonna have a public hearing on. But since then, EFC said, no, you need to reflect just this in the new one, because you already did one for that project. So at the next board meeting, we're going to have a public hearing on this new public interest order. Actually, the EFC refers to it as what was it called again? A project cost change resolution. But basically it's saying, okay, the project in 2021, it was $1.93 million per the map plan and report that Delaware Engineering developed. But now there's an amendment to that map plan report that's referenced in this new resolution to reference the fact that it's 3.9 million based on the bids that we got.
Is that the board meeting this Monday?
So I'm gonna talk about, so yeah, let me talk about that. So in order to have the public hearing on the 22nd, we had to publish the notice 10 days before, which means that in the record review, which is our paper, which is our official paper for notices, this would have had to been published last Thursday. It wasn't. We got notice from them over the weekend. I think it was Monday was day off. We got notice from them that they are not, and that they suspended operations. So this never got posted, as well as a couple of other things that we had. A bid for a highway for something that they're doing. So that means that we can't have a public hearing January 22nd. So the public hearing is now scheduled for February 13th, which is our next town board meeting. Now, that also means we got to go back to the contractors and say, sorry, but now our decision-making is going to take a little, they already gave us an extension just because we needed more time as we were ironing out things with EFC. I wanted to feel comfortable with EFC and the grants and all that. So they gave us more time so that we could hold a public hearing on January 22nd and make a decision on whether we want to move forward with the project. But now we had to ask them again, sorry, but newspaper went out of business. Can we get another extension?
That's crazy.
So, yeah. Go ahead, Robin. You want to come up to the mic? Sorry, we gotta get some remote mics, guys.
So I'm a little confused. Did you award the bid or not?
No,
Okay, so you're gonna award it at the meeting?
so we first need to have the public hearing. And then
Yes.
after that, we can award the bid.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's why you're saying to the contractors, hang out for a little while.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah.
Does that affect the May start?
Does that, I don't know. I mean,
Probably does.
so after we award the bid, we have to enter into a contract with each of the three contractors, right? The mechanical, the electrical,
Got it.
and the general contractor. So, yeah, so it may, but we're not sure. So, as far as that project is concerned, we have leftover from the grant, and that was a grant that we were awarded. If you remember, for those who were here when we had a meeting at the Vista Fire Department, a few years back, we talked about that other project, which was to eliminate trihalomethanes from, what it was like one section of I think it was near Conant Valley. That's where I think it was measured to be, and we had to do some things to remediate that. But we got a grant for it. It was at the time, it was a $489,000 project. So we had to do the same thing. We had to pass a bond resolution saying we're gonna borrow $489,000. So we have that, it's actually a bond anticipation of $482,000. And so we did some things, we spent some of that grant money. But there's, so what EFC does is they give you 60% of the project costs. If you get the grant, it's gonna be 60% of the cost. So 60% of 482,000 is 289,000. That was the grant that we were awarded in 2019. We tried twice. We didn't get it the first time, and then we had to try it again, I remember. And we still have 195,000 left over unused from that grant. We have about 122,000 left over from the ban, the bond anticipation note. Subtract that from the 381, which is the cost for these additional enhancements for the chemical feed system and storage, we're short $64,000. So where's that money gonna come from? That money is gonna come from the settlement. We took part in a class action suit against 3M and DuPont for the two companies that developed PFAS. And it's used in that link that was in the first or second slide. Has all that information, but basically it's a chemical compound that's used in firefighting foam. It's used in Teflon pans. It's used in water repellent clothing, plastics, and it gets into the ground, and it's called a forever chemical because it doesn't leave. Once it's in the water, it stays there. Now, just to give you an idea, and I forget the exact. I read an article like 10 parts per trillion is like, I don't know. It's equivalent to maybe a drop of this PFAS in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. But that is enough, they think, to potentially, have some health, enough for us to be concerned about the health implications. So that's how we're gonna pay for that. So let's put that aside. I wouldn't worry about that piece. Now we're at this piece here, right? That's the actual, the building expansion that's gonna include, that's gonna house these new carbon containers. And Robert worked, it was Hoosick Falls, right? That's the one you worked on. That was similar, or actually bigger. It was all over the news. It was a big thing.
That was the first one in New York State, yeah.
The first one, yeah. So you want to talk about that one?
So in 2016, this is when PFAS hit the news, and that was the village of Hoosick Falls. That's near the border of Vermont in New York. And so that's, water contaminated, can't drink it. Nobody knew, there wasn't even a regulation as to how much PFAS could be in your water. So, but enough of the public made an issue that it was obvious that something had to be done. And there you had the actual contaminating, an industry, St. Cobain, who was in the village, active factory. So there was the person who contaminated the water was there. So they were on board, we'll pay for what it takes to build a water treatment plant fix, right? But nobody knew what the fix would be. There was no regulation, Department of Health hadn't done one, et cetera, right? So we went through all that. We did a test, it worked, then we built a permanent one. So the permanent one went online in 2016. And it's been working since then. So no PFAS has gone to the village water supply since that was up in operation, right? So it's many years since then. So since then and now, we've done another a similar system to this one in Oakridge, and there's been, at this point, several other filtrations using granulate carbon to absorb the PFAS, and it's no longer a mystery about whether it's going to work or not work. All the things that were unknown in 2016 are pretty much known now. So at least that part is good to know. There's now one of the reasons why the approval took a little longer than is that when we first submitted our plans to the Department of Health, the state had no regulations as to what a PFAS treatment should be. And then they created one and published one. So then the DOH, they want to move ahead with the review until it got published and approved. And then they have to make sure that everything in our design met the new standards and guidance and all this stuff. But anyway, it all got done. But it's so this is that I've done personally will be the third system, pretty much exactly like the one that Oakridge has in terms of it's a municipal size. Yours is on the smaller because the other ones are more like 1 million gallons a day. Yours is closer to like 90,000 gallons a day in terms of capacity. Unfortunately, the costs keep going higher and higher. Yeah.
Right, yeah, and that's something that we were also surprised, when the bids came in at the cost, but keep in mind also that we're putting in these new pump systems, we're putting in the redundancy. It's a new building, we're freeing up space from the old building, which is very cramped. And of course, doing the chemical heat system improvements and storage. So now the question is, how do we pay for that, right? So fortunately, we have these two grants, right? We have the 1.163 million, and we have the federal EPA 1.8. So in subtracting those two grants from the total, it's 939,000 is what needs to be financed. Just to put this in perspective, when the town took over the plant, both the water and the sewer, back in early 2000s, the town took out there was a borrowing for the sewer side of 6 million, close to 6 million. There were multiple bonds, but then in 2010, I think they were all combined into a New York State
CFC bond, yes.
bond for $5.8 or $5.9 million. So that's what was done then, right? Just to give you an idea of some of the money that went into the plant. At the same time, they needed to improve the water treatment side because it wasn't maintained, it wasn't doing its job, it wasn't filtering, it wasn't doing anything. When Delaware came in, they redesigned the what's there today, right? So we got it to a point where the water was improved, and we put in these filters. The town borrowed $700,000.
700,000, yes.
For that, and Anisha has the spreadsheet.
In 2003, we borrowed 700,000, and in 2019, we had 482,000.
Right, the 2019 was the one I spoke about.
Yes,
the
that's
482.
the goal, yes,
Yeah.
the other project, yes.
So those were prior borrowings that, again, the sewer side for those, how is that getting, how is the town paying those debts? It's part of your sewer tax, right? So the sewer side, there's a sewer tax component and there's a sewer bond component as well. And it's based on assessed value of your property. So that's the sewer side. On the water side, the 700,000 and then the 489,000. So the 700,000 was already, I believe, with that borrowing, that was around the time when the town took over the district, and they had to come up with rates. So the rate you're paying today is the same rate that was in 2004. So your rates and your quarterly water usage fee or water district fee did not change since then. It has not increased. So what you're paying today, you've been paying for about 20 years, which is unheard of.
Well, the quality is exactly the same, though, right?
What's that?
The quality of water is still the same.
No, it's not.
No,
it's not.
Different, it's a different kind of pollution.
What's the maybe you want to come up to the mic and
We had groundwater, we did a lot of other work to make it drinkable, and for
Right, we did this because the health department uncovered trihalomethane. This was the only thing that was done after the town took over in terms of improvement, right? But initially, when they took over, they put in the green sand filters and they put in the multimedia filters, which were not, there was some filtering in there, but it was not functional, right? So yeah, so the rates haven't changed. We have, and I guess maybe I'll go to the next. So the next steps in the process, so we'll get to the rates thing. Is there a question? Anyone else? Okay. So finalize EPA funding. So there's a cost share component. So the EPA, what they do is they'll give you, in order to get the $1.8 million, we had to put in a project cost estimate of 2.25 million. Because the way that grant works is you get a 20% cost share that we would be responsible for. And that means we'd be responsible for 450,000 in order to get the 1.8 million. Which would come out of the loan that we're getting from New York City FC if our waiver isn't approved. Now, the waiver, there's like 7 criteria that if you meet any of the 7 criteria, they would consider waiving the cost share. So fingers crossed, that's what's going to happen. I have to thank Erica Agro. I know she's not here tonight, but she helped me with that. There's some work involved, and she, offered to help, and she did the research. And we actually meet one of the criteria, which is for residents who are 16 years old and above, the unemployment rate has to be under a certain, or above, if it's above exceeds a certain number, and you meet, and if we do, they would consider waiving that cost share. So we're just waiting for feedback on that from EPA. Finalize the FC funding. So it's the project finance agreement. This is based again on the new project costs, and so that finance agreement will reflect the new project costs and reflect the loan, the 939,000 that would be financed through New York State. And the goal is because they have a very, and of course I want to minimize the financial burden on the district as much as possible. That's my number one concern, right? So with New York State's financing, they provide you with short-term financing, which is roughly at about 2.8%, the interest rate currently, which is pretty good. But then once the project is done, it gets converted to a 40-year note, which is based on the useful life of a water plant, right? That's how they look at it. And at that point, it's going to be market rate. So whatever the market rate is, it could be 4%, right? So what we would do, and Nisha and I have been speaking about this, is we would take that, and it's been done before with different borrowings that the town has done. You take all the borrowings and you put it into one lump sum. So right now the town has, I think it's a total of 3.8, 3.9 million in borrowed money that's coming in for various projects. And what we would do is we would take, after the project is done, we would potentially bundle the principal balance to the town's outstanding principal balance and issue another bond. We would convert it to a bond.
Yes.
And then at that point, we have a company called CMA. There are
Capital market
advisors.
Yes.
They will go to the marketplace and they'll hit different financial institutions to see, okay, who's going to give us the best rate. So we just did this last year.
Last year with the other bond. Yes.
Right, and we got a rate of
3.2, I believe. I need
Yeah,
to
3
check.
point. So for all the town's borrowed funds, we were able to, basically, it's a refinance, right? But you go to the marketplace, which is competitive. And since the town has a very good financial rating, and the more that borrowing amount is, the more
The better rates. Yes.
Yeah, you have
Better
more chance to get
competitive
better
rates,
rates.
yes.
Yeah, there's more competition and everybody wants.
But we have to decide, we have to go with EFC or we have to convert our bands and include this value into the band and
Right,
make it as a bond.
right,
So that's the option that we have on the later date. But yes, this will be a part of borrowing that we
right,
have.
yeah. So those are the kind of things that we're, behind the scenes, we're gonna be keeping a close eye on this and and we'll make sure we get the best rate, again, to minimize the impact and the cost to the district.
Tax exempt funds?
I don't know, I don't think they are. No, they're tax, municipal
we are-
bonds are tax exempt.
Yes, yes, we are tax exempt,
It's
yes.
municipal, so it's tax
Yes.
exempt, yes,
Correct.
yes. So we have this revised project cost resolution and a public hearing, which is required in order to finalize the project finance agreement with New York State EFC. The public hearing is going to be scheduled February 13th, like I mentioned, is because the paper suspended operations. They're probably going to go out of business completely. I've heard some rumors that someone may be trying to provide financing we need, but so we had to go to our backup publication, which is the Westchester Journal News. So we're going to at the town board meeting on January 22nd, we have to agree to publish that for the public hearing. So that's what's going to happen on Monday. And then at the February 13th meeting, we'll have the public hearing, and that's when we need to decide whether or not we want to move forward with the contractors that have been recommended. Just get back, I decided to put this up here. These are the rates that have been in effect since 2004. So residential condominium, you pay per quarter $55 plus the water usage. And the water usage is based on how much water you consume. So it's $7 per 1,000 gallons, 8,000 per 1,000 gallons. If once you exceed 7,000, and once you exceed 27,000, which is a lot, it would be $9 per 1,000 gallons. So that's the current. So I just want to share that this is on our website. So there is the rates and regulations for the water district are posted on the town's website under the Oakridge page. So potential impact to your rates. So when Leo Masterson, our former controller, when I was working with him on all things related to Oakridge, and of course he's working on the money side of it, and how to keep the maintenance and operations paid for, and because you are a district, so we can't touch town money to operate the district, right? So there have been discussions over the past couple of years. We knew that rates were going to have to be to increase. Some of the things that will impact, and part of the reason is because we had, for example, the developer contribution went away in mid-2022. That was the contribution that we were getting. This is Smith Ridge Associates. So when they built the new development, townhomes, we were getting
Close to 150.
about 150,000 a year.
Yes.
So there was an amount for each unit that was closed. And that was helping to pay for the operations of the plant, the operations and maintenance. That dried up because there were no more, pretty much all the units were sold. And we so there was no more of that flow coming in, that cash flow coming in. We have to factor in also the operations and maintenance, which when working with Leo, yeah, there was a lot of maintenance that was being done over the past couple years or so. This immediate past year, they decreased. So we didn't have as much, we had, for example, in 2022, we had 3 well pumps go bad. And each time a well pump needs to be replaced, it's, depending on the size of the pump, it's close to $20,000. And then when you're replacing the pump, you want to replace the piping and the wiring that goes down with the pump. So this year we actually, Nisha actually shared this with me, that we have been doing better. We're keeping a close eye on all the costs. I'm working personally, work very closely with VRI to make sure that we keep the costs
So the actual
down.
cost in 2022 was close to 320,000, and the actual cost in 2023 was 218,000.
Right, so
approximately.
there's a reduction in operations
Yes.
and maintenance of about $100,000
100,000.
in 2022 to 2023.
But 2022, the expenses were really high, and the
Yeah.
rates were not able to support those expenditures.
Right. So we were, so we've been at this position where, we're not bringing in enough money. Like I said, the $100,000 reduction is good. So that helps. But now we have to consider the incremental cost there's always a potential that there's gonna be additional maintenance that, we don't know if the other pump's gonna go bad. But knock on wood, okay, this is wood. They won't. Things have been running smoothly and hopefully that'll continue being the case. But now we need to take into consideration the cost of this new loan, right? Which, just some quick math with Nisha working with capital market advisors. If we took this loan as a 20-year note, which is TBD, it could be a 40-year, it could be 30-year, 20-year, we got to figure out how much are we willing to pay. Once you shorten the term, of course, your monthly payment or your principal and interest payments, are higher. So based on a 20-year note, we need to increase the meter sales, which means the water usage. So what I want to do is, I don't want to, we have the option of issuing an assessment, right? Where we say, okay, we're going to assess you, $200 per quarter, right? Or whatever that number is. But I'd rather do it as part of the water usage, because I think that'll have the least impact on the community. Now, the bad thing about that is if all of a sudden you stop using water, we're not going to be able to pay the loan, right? So please use the water. So that's the drawback to doing, to using that model, right? But I think it's the best model that'll providing the least impact or the least financial burden to the community. So that means we've got to increase meter sales by about $65,000 a year. We may want to round that up to, have some money for any maintenance that may occur that we're not expecting. And so that's the usage. And then there's the quarterly base fee. Maybe we want to increase the quarterly base fee. So for condo, it's been $55 per quarter, again, since 2004. Other communities are paying a lot more. I've learned from other people. So what I want to do next is just show you a worksheet, which Nisha and I have been working with just to get some idea. Let me just stop sharing this screen. And then share my worksheet here. Okay, so this is, no, hold on a second. Oh,
You're
you know
sharing
what? I
with
gotta
Zoom and.
close this. Okay, so. Okay, so here, just to give you an idea, this spreadsheet it's a spreadsheet that we put together, and I have to thank Joel Smith, he's around here somewhere, because he does some of the work with.
Can you make that bigger?
I can. Yeah, that's okay. It'll.
Maybe just summarize.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, so here, so basically, the way this is broken up is, this is a condo. You're using about, a low usage condo. You're using 4,000 gallons, right? You have your base fee of $55 per quarter. You have your usage, for the first 7,000 gallons, you're paying $7 per thousand. So your quarterly bill is $28 for water usage and $55 for the fee. So that's a total of $83 per quarter. Same thing with an average condo, right? It's $128 per quarter. In this case, they're using 10,000 gallons. So it's a $7 per thousand, and then once you get above 7,000 gallons, it's $8 per thousand. So that's average. I'm sorry?
Did you define at what average is?
Well, here in this case, average is 10,000 gallons. That's an average. The low is 4,000 gallons. And then you have, all right,
May I ask a question?
yeah, if you come up to the mic, you can ask a question.
I have a twofold question. One is fiscal and one is technical. Technically, if this system is functioning properly and New York State lowers it to the 4% PFAS, would that be also?
Yeah, so it's
It
federal
would-
government that will lower it to 4 parts per trillion.
And then we would still be under parts per trillion.
Correct.
If that
because
is the
with this
case.
design, you're gonna be, what's
Close
called
to-
non-detect.
So non-detect, okay, so that the system will function if that's changed.
Correct.
Second question is, I think all of us are a little bit like trying to put together all the fiscal stuff and it's
Mhm.
hard and we can't read it. So if it is an additional surcharge on everybody's water bills, is there a percentage that you're working on? Is it say 2%, 3%, 4% higher per quarter based on your usage? That of course it would be including Conant Valley and the commercial district or whoever is in the district. I think that would just give us a little clarity as to what to expect our increases to be.
Well, yeah, so I haven't calculated the percentages here, but in this model, this is an assumption that we made in order to, if we want to have an incremental revenue coming into the district. So let's say $91,000 is our goal, right? It's 65,000 to cover the loan, and plus another 25,000, 26,000 for any maintenance, right? So I'm saying, okay, we need another 91,000, so let's go with that. So then we, and to get to that number, we ended up increasing the rates. And again, I didn't calculate the percentage, but it's, get rid of this. But we went to, again, as a test, 13 cents, we had the 7, 8, and 9 cents per thousand gallons. Here, to get to that 91,000, I increased across the board to 13 cents. And that's, so in the case of the condo that's using only 4,000 gallons, it's an increment per quarter of $34. Increase, $34 per quarter. And that's increasing the fee to 65 from 55, right? So per quarter, your bill, if you're consuming 4,000 gallons, will go up by $34, your quarterly bill. So that's like $10, a little over $11 a month in change. That would be the increase to get this new plant expansion. If you're the average, you're consuming 10,000 gallons, then you can go home and look at your bill and see how much you consume. We're talking a $67 quarterly increase.
Over what time period is that?
So the question is, for how long will you be paying this increase? For as long as, so if I'm still supervisor 20 years from now, and that loan goes away, I wouldn't mind reducing your fee, right?
What has the town done to find the money? Find the extra money?
That's what I just went over.
Not from us, but the federal, to get the funding for us.
So the question is, I'd rather you have come up to the mic to ask your question, so I'll repeat it here so folks at home can hear it. The question is, what are we doing to find additional money? Right, so,
Not from us.
right. That was my goal, and I got $2.9 million, right? So we found $2.9 million, right? So I found a little over 70% of the cost is being paid by grants.
Bravo.
Which is, in talking to other communities, I mean, we get people from, North Salem, so, that's congratulations, you got $1.8 million from the federal government, that's great. We didn't get anything.
Is that part of the American Rescue Fund?
No, the 1.8 million is part of congressional earmarks, which had gone away, like every year, Congress would allow their, congressional districts to, they'd give them funds for earmarks to the district, right, for projects. When Congressman Maloney was in office, it was the first time that that was reinstituted. So now there is, we get an email, like Peter Parsons had received the email and he said, Tony, look at this, see, where can we use this? And I looked at it and I said, Oakridge was the first thing that came to mind. And we worked closely with the congressman's office and, we applied and we got it. Now, had we put in for more, would we have gotten more? Maybe, or maybe we wouldn't have, right? Because they could say, you know what, they're asking for too much money. We're not gonna approve that application.
But
So,
can we use the American Rescue Funds for any overage?
it's to be determined. I don't think so because you have to have,
I know
So-
you're gonna look into it.
yeah, so I'm looking at all options that come across my desk,
So
right?
this doesn't get bundled with the other, over, the other money, the other bonds?
No, it doesn't.
No,
No.
this is, the rest of the town is not gonna contribute to Oakridge.
Yes, as per the state
Right.
law, we cannot have general fund money coming into Oakridge Water and we cannot mix funds. So their bond and principal and interest will stay separate and ours will, water district will stay separate.
Yeah, because you're a special district, right? So
Yes.
you have your own fees and, yes.
When do we
So-
expect this to start?
So the question is,
When do we expect this to start?
the project itself?
The cost next quarter.
Oh, the money. This.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
second
Nisha
quarter.
wanted to do it quarter 1,
Yes.
meaning January. I said,
No.
she told me that December 31st. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But I said, let's wait till Q2 because we need to give time for
Everyone.
everyone to understand what we may possibly be doing. So ideally, we want to do this Q2. So beginning of April 1st, I guess, which is the new quarter.
This doesn't factor in the DuPont class action.
Good point. I meant to talk more about that and I forgot to. So right now we have, that other slide where I had, we were short 64,000. I said that would come out of the class action. Right now, the good faith estimate that we received from the law firm that's working on our behalf is that we're gonna get $270,000. So to answer the question of where we're gonna get more money, I'm actually looking to increase that amount. So part of it, and I spoke to them about this, is, hey, we have this project. We thought it was gonna be paid for by all these grants, but now the project costs essentially double. Can we put that into the claim? And they said, absolutely. So we're gonna put that into the claim, and if we get another, I don't know, 500,000, $1 million, right? Who knows? That will all go back to pay the loan. And then at that point, we'll see about the rates, but we need to start getting ready
But it
for
won't
this.
come in time to not have us
Well,
pay next
in the meeting I had last month with the law firm, it looks like there may be 2 payouts, one in the spring and then one a little bit later. But we're still, in fact, Delaware is helping me. There's still some data that we're trying to collect to make our case look better and to try to get more of that settlement. The Pont and 3M have settled, so there's a bucket of money from both of those companies. And now it's a matter of everyone that's part of the class action to put in the data that will help with obtaining as much of that money that settlement as possible.
And if we had this fund, could we pay it off early, say that we got a windfall?
Oh, yeah, sure, we could.
No penalty.
So we could wipe the loan away and, yeah, exactly.
There's a 10 years, no prepayment.
Wait, there's a 10-year,
No
hold on.
prepayment. No prepayment for 10 years.
For 10
right?
years?
Yes. yes.
With this, but if we stick with
If with EFC.
with EFC, we can
Yes.
pay early.
No, that's what they said.
Is that what they said?
Yes, I'm
Oh,
not so sure
But
about
our
the
plan is
bond.
not to stay with EFC. right?
That's a decision we can make.
So
later,
we,
yes.
so there's still some decision making that needs to be done, but yeah.
Can we
But-
get any money for the existing equipment?
Can we get any money for the existing equipment? You mean like scrap it? Well, we're not gonna, well, the old pumps are gonna, I don't know, they get sent somewhere. I don't know. if-
Scrap metal, basically.
Scrap metal, yeah. They're old. I don't know how much money. I mean, we can look into that if there's, all right, another question.
Just a clarification, I know you.
You want to come up
touched
to the
on it
mic? I'd
earlier.
rather have some people at home can hear. Yeah.
So I know you touched on this earlier, but the existing charges from previous work that had been done.
Right.
So on our tax bill from the town, there's a line item Oakridge bond, and then there's Oakridge sewer. And I'm,
So those two, I had this conversation with someone else earlier today over email. Those two relate to the sewer side. So that was borrowing that was done. That was the
5.1 million.
point something million dollars
right,
that the town needed to get the sewer plant working like it should be working.
right,
And that's based on your assessed value. It's not based
Correct.
on how much sewage you.
Right,
create or
right.
wastewater. It's based on the,
so some of it was bonded and some of it is not?
yeah, there's
So
a
what-
sewer
there's-
tax and then.
Oh,
when-
a sewer
there's a
tax
sewer
and
tax,
and the bond.
And then we had the bond.
Okay.
That bond needed to be repaid. And
Okay.
that was the prior administrations. That's how they decided it was
Okay.
going to be repaid.
And will that bond ever come due?
It's, yeah, we have, do you have that?
That big Excel, no, I'm
The
not.
big one?
carrying
No.
that one.
We can find out.
Find
If
it
you-
out.
if you email my office, and we'll try to put these notes together.
Okay.
But for the sewer side, we didn't bring that information.
Okay.
For the water side,
Yes.
the $700,000 ban, that we have another, how many years?
400 and, we'll pay off in 2043.
2043, so another 20
20
years.
years, close to,
That $700,000 bond that's ban
might.
will
go
be paid off.
Paid off, yes.
So, okay. Oh, yeah, actually, I'm gonna go to Zoom for questions. I think this pretty much covers this, but does anyone else here have any questions surrounding what we're planning on doing and how we're going about doing it?
Hi, I know it's mostly a discussion about money, but I have a question about the trihalomethanes, because they were an issue years before the PFAS, right? This is all about PFAS. It was my understanding, talking to Parsons before, when he was trying to get the water better, that the trihalomethanes had little to do with the filtration system and more to do with the actual water system and the way the water sits and collects these organics.
Right.
And it was my understanding that we do these flushings all the time to mitigate the trihalomethanes. So with this new system, are you still gonna need to do flushings?
We
Is
will, yeah.
you're still gonna need to
Not
do-
flushing of the carbon filtration, because
Flushing of the pipes.
flushing of the pipes, yeah, because we do backwash of the existing filters, but you're talking just flushing of the pipes. We still will be doing that, yes.
Right, and we pay for that?
That's part of the operational cost, yes.
And because that's a lot of times when we get our brown water is usually during or after, right, after these flushings.
Correct.
So all this stuff doesn't even mitigate that one problem that we're having.
Well, because we had increased flushing, there was a period of time we did like quarterly flushing rather than twice a year. The amount of sediment decreased. The brown is, and Robert, I'll let you jump in, but
So
it's.
just a couple things. So, so the carbon filtration that we're adding to remove the PFAS, that also removes the organics that mix with the chlorine to get you your THMs, right? So, not necessarily by default, but you will also eliminate the precursors of THMs with the carbon filtration. So the expectation is that you'll have
But some of the issue is after it comes out of the plant, no, with the system we have specifically in Oakridge, right? After it comes out of the plant, right? It can get more organics or it can get,
basically, if old water mixed with chlorine, the longer it sits, the more THMs you get, right?
Yeah.
So let's say today, if it sits for 3 days, you have the THMs are too high. And after carbon filtration, you might be able to go 10 days before they get too high, right? So, but they do generate and do create, it'll take longer. And whether that means that you can reduce flushing to once a year, that's a possibility, but, we only know until after the fact.
So I mean, we're still gonna have some water issues even with the plant per se. Do all water districts need to flush?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Even municipal, like city water, like where my dad, used to live in Mount Vernon.
So, yeah, so flushing once or
Whatever.
twice a year is standard everywhere.
Yeah. Any other questions here? Robin?
Let's say there's a wait to start the project and prices increase. How are you gonna cover more increase in prices?
So the bids that we received are locked, right? They can't go unless there's like a major surprise. And Robert will probably be able to, talk about that more, but unless there's, right now, what's been designed and what the contract is quoted on, they cannot change their price. They already put in a bid. and-
Materials and everything?
Correct.
Okay. So you're
Correct.
guaranteeing that this is gonna be the price?
Correct. Now, back at, that screen, there was so each contractor has a contingency. If you total it up, I think there's 170,000. And,
200,000.
well, then there's a separate 200,000
Yes.
contingency that we put in for any other surprises that may come up. But
So you have a buffer?
we have a buffer,
Okay.
yeah. And hopefully we won't have to use that buffer, right? So, but that's there. Any other questions?
I can speak loudly. Do we have a 100% compliance of bill paying for water in the Oakridge district?
I believe we do. I believe yeah, usually I get notice when there's, and then I have to sign the letter that goes out.
Okay.
And after the last round of letters that went out, we got payments from everyone.
Yes, Deirdre confirmed.
Yep, okay.
Mhm.
So the question was, in case anyone at home didn't hear that, do we have any folks that are not paying their water bills? And right now it's, yes, everyone's paying their water bills. Did you have a question?
I do. You said that we will be hopefully starting in May. What does that do as far as making our amenities accessible? Our pool, the courts, with construction area?
Well, so we need to set up staging area. And of course, we want to minimize the impact to the community as much as possible. I don't think we'll be impacting the pool area at all.
But how do we walk to the pool area if the construction goes that far? There's usually like a barrier, right?
Yeah.
So can you work that out with Plaza so that we don't have to deal with that when it comes time?
I mean, typically with construction sites, you're more familiar with this, they will have detours for pedestrians.
I know
Right,
that
but we
there's
only have
a
one-
path.
We have one path in, so
Yeah.
that's what I'm asking. Will it
Yeah.
all be accessible?
So there's a path that's really close to the water plant right now. And I don't know if that's the one you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the one.
So that path is actually has to be moved because of the addition.
The steps down or the walk, like
The walkway part. So we'll have to establish a construction perimeter, right? And there'll be a temporary walkway, but then there'll be a new permanent walkway. But that particular walkway does have to shift over.
I have a question about how will the proposed villas at Vista play into this? And can their water supply be hooked up during the time that there's.
Yeah, so in my opinion, it shouldn't be a concern. It's just having additional units turning on a faucet. So the way the plant operates, it's constantly pushing water out to the storage tank. It's a $95,000 storage tank. And we keep it at a certain level, maybe not 95,000, but maybe 85,000. I don't know what that number is. So that's the water that's available to the community, which then goes back to the plant to get pumped out. When you have an extra, 14, 18 units turning on a water faucet, when you have 95,000 gallons to supply the water, it's not going to impact the community or the system. It's not going to be an extra load on the system.
Okay.
But you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see how you would notice. Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, when we backwash the filters, we're using 10,000 gallons a day. And that has no impact on the water going to the community. These additional units are going to be using a lot less than 10,000 gallons per day. When people are watering their lawns, they're using a lot of water, right? So again, if you compare that to, a two-bedroom unit and someone that's turning on a sink to take a shower, it's minimal impact, if any.
Thank you.
Any other questions here before I go to Zoom? No? Okay, so we'll go to Zoom next, and it's usually at the town board meetings, Janet Donahue handles this, but I will see if I can do as good a job here. Okay, Simone. All right, Simone, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are.
All right, I have a few questions, Tony. I'm sick, otherwise I would be there live. At the town board meeting, the last one, you stated, and I listened to it again, that in 2021, the cost would have been much lower. I believe it was going to be lower by almost 2 million, or at least over 1 million. Why wasn't it addressed then? That's my first question, and I have 4 more.
So let me answer that one. So the original estimate in 2021 was the estimate that we had for that particular size expansion of the plant.
So had we done it, then would it have been less and we wouldn't have to take out $1 million loan?
Potentially, yes. Had we done it then? Potentially. I mean, I don't know what, I mean, there was I'm sorry?
We don't have the federal money.
Yeah, exactly. We, at that point, we didn't have any money to pay for it. So we.
I don't know who that person is talking.
So her point was that at that point in time, when we made that estimate, that we needed to send to the health department, we didn't have any federal money or state money. Plus, we couldn't kick off the project until it got approved. So we couldn't start the project back then.
That's what you're saying? That
Correct.
we wouldn't be able to start the project back then?
That is correct. If you saw the presentation, it took 2 years for the health department to approve the design.
I did
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
Also, you said that if you allow 18 more units being built, taxing the water plant, you said it would be nominal. We wouldn't even feel it. Why wouldn't you consider in good faith not allowing it right now until you do break ground, do something that's more than just billing the community of Oakridge?
So legally, we cannot stop someone who's already tapped into the water system from being able to use it. The application is a change of use from commercial to residential. So legally, we cannot stop them. And the second point is that the consumption itself is, it is minimal. It meets the standards for, if the calculation that was done by the health department, or you looking at health department regulations based on number of bedrooms, the consumption is, let's say it's a number X. We compare that to current true life consumption of similar size units, which are actually less than the health department's guidelines. So the impact is, when I say nominal, it's actually 0.
And that's factual, or your facts?
That's factual.
Okay, how much money have we paid to Delaware Engineering thus far?
About $164,000.
And what exactly is their position? What do they do?
What do they do?
Yeah, you
They are
said
the
that they,
subject matter experts. They are the folks who designed the design that's going in. They're the ones who also got the plan to the design that was needed to get it up and running once the town took over.
will they work with the contractors?
They will, yes.
And they
That's
will,
part of that presentation. One of the slides had a engineering construction fee in there. That's basically them overseeing the contractors and making sure that everything is built as designed by them.
And we need that financially. We need to keep Delaware Engineering on.
Absolutely. The preference is to keep whoever designed the design of the plant is preferentially the folks you want on the project.
Have you gotten a second opinion other than from Delaware Engineering?
No, I have not.
Is there a reason for that?
It would cost extra money to get a second opinion because you'd have to hire multiple firms to review the contract, the design, and they don't do that for free.
But isn't that what normally people do when they build? They get more
No,
than one opinion?
Not for engineering services. You're not required to by state law.
I'm not asking required to. Wouldn't it be prudent?
It would be prudent if the district would like to spend extra money to have 1, 2, or 3 engineering firms come in and give us a quote, or take the time to analyze the design and give us a quote to do the construction management. But then what happens if their quotes are higher? Or what
Well,
happens?
it should have been done already. That's my position.
But that
you
would have
should
been
have
an
had.
incremental cost to the district.
I understand, and you're playing to the people in the room who don't want to spend money, and I don't blame them. I'm telling you that prior to today, maybe in 2021, when things were $2 million approximately cheaper, you could have had a second opinion, but you chose not to. You chose Delaware Engineering, and due deference to Robert, who's sitting there. This is no personal attack. I think that you should have, as part of your fiduciary duty, have gotten a second opinion, maybe not a third and fourth. I don't think a second opinion would have cost that much. And finally, did the state?
Let me just respond to that. So back in 2021, we needed somebody to design the system. The engineering company that the town has elected to use is Delaware Engineering. So to go outside and bring in someone who's not familiar with the plant would not necessarily work to our advantage.
Well, it could have been before 2021. I'm sure other engineering companies, this is what they do. Delaware Engineering is not like the United States of America Engineering Company, I would think.
But they are the engineers that we decided to work with.
Right, without getting a second opinion. Did you state that the New York State lowered the standards for PFAS?
They did, yes.
Do you have any idea, and you may not know, as to why?
Because they feel that they want to be more aggressive about having lower limits of PFAS in drinking water. The federal
Okay.
government doesn't do anything about it. The state decided to take it upon themselves to lower the limit.
Okay, and my final question, I really appreciate you answering. You stated that the town of Lewisboro took over the water treatment plant in the early 2000s. Is that correct?
That's correct. The water and the wastewater.
And why was that? Why did our town take it over when
The
it was
town foreclosed
private?
on it.
Say again, I'm sorry.
It was a tax foreclosure.
Okay. And other than what you stated in the presentation, nothing else has been done to address the water issue?
You mean since the town took over the plant?
Other than what you stated, you said that something minimal was done back in, I think, 2003?
I didn't say minimal. I said that it cost almost $7 million to get the plant to where it is today, both the wastewater side. Sorry, take that back. It's about 6 million on the wastewater and 700,000 on the water.
And at that time, there was no discussion of PFAS?
Not back then, no.
So it was up to standard, you're stating, back then?
PFAS was not an issue back then.
Okay, and what the gentleman who spoke before, he was speaking about the THM. I don't
Yes.
know what that stands for. I'm not an engineer or a scientist. Once this is done, God willing, this THM, what is that? Is that something we should be concerned with?
No, not at this point. And I'll let Robert speak to that, but THM are trihalomethanes, and Robert spoke a little bit about that and how that occurs in pretty much it's in water that sits stagnant for a while in pipes.
Right,
Go
it's
ahead.
when chlorine hits organic matter, it starts decomposing, and that's basically what you get as trihalomethanes, THMs, and high level of those are carcinogenic and not good for you, right?
So that's always going to be a problem?
So you're below the levels now with the flushing you've been doing, and the carbon filtration will help also because they'll reduce the organics that'll be in the water. So this will benefit both the THMs and remove the PFAS.
And my final question, and I thank you for indulging me, and thank you, Robert, for that. I appreciate that, is as far as the engineering company, you only went with one. As far as the contractors, how many did you choose from?
We had, the list was about 5 or 6
I think
for each.
for every
of the-
prime, yeah.
We have 3 different contracts, one for the general contractor, which is taking care of all the building, the site work,
Major equipment.
the filter systems, and then you have the electrical, and then you have the HVAC. So those are 3 separate contracts. I don't have the list in front of me, but we had about 5 of each, maybe 4 or 5 for each of those contracts.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, anyone else on Zoom have a question? Nope, okay. I'll give a chance to anyone here, if you want to come up. Well,
Responsible, no,
okay,
for the water treatment before the township it over. Wasn't it Phil Pine?
it was whoever was the entity that owned the,
It was Phil Pine, and he got away with it. And it just blows my mind.
yeah, I unfortunately, I was not around back then.
Yeah, I was. And
But
that's-
yeah, I mean, I was around, but I wasn't
You know,
involved,
and
so.
the town just keeps giving him, and he's responsible for this plant being the what happened, $5.5 million, and you had, town had put into it. He's responsible, because he never took care of it. And nothing
Yeah.
ever happened. It's a shame.
Yeah, I don't, all I know is that the town foreclosed on the entity that owned the plant didn't pay taxes on the plant back then, in the early 2000s.
It's really hot. It's a
And,
shame, really a shame.
You know, that's all I know.
Wanting to build the new one.
He's building.
Right. Yeah.
Will the commercial spaces be billed the water as well?
Yes, so in that spreadsheet I showed, everybody will, yes.
Besides Oakridge and the new places in Conan Valley, are there any other streets that are involved? Just Conan Valley?
Yeah, Coney Valley is, they're involved. In fact, just on the trihalomethanes, when the health department detected, it was at Coney Valley, correct?
Because it was the farthest away.
Because they're the farthest point, so this trihalomethanes issue never impacted this area, the condos, yeah. But yes, it's basically, Coney Valley, all the condos and the townhomes, they're all in the commercial. They're all tapped into the.
And the car wash?
And the car wash and the daycare center. The car wash that doesn't use any water. Right now, so-
The firehouse too?
No, the firehouse is on its own system, yeah. So one thing also I'd like to share is there are a lot of other communities out there that have this problem, but they don't have the backing of a municipality to be able to get grants. So we're seeing other developments in town that have to come up with, $1 million+ for a new system. In some cases, they're trying a new well to see if they get water with less PFAS. That always doesn't work because you could be hitting the same aquifers, right? The same water source. And they don't have a way to, the only way to pay for it is through the district. So you're fortunate to hear that the town has this capability, right? That we were able to go to our congressmen and our state representatives and get help.
So obviously, we don't want to drink this water, and I don't think anybody does. But what about cooking with it and you boil? How is that?
So
Boiling doesn't touch it.
So I've spoken to people who say the water's fine, I drink it. I've spoken to people who say I don't like the taste. I don't like the odor or whatever. Sometimes it tastes like chlorine. I mean, municipal water, my dad's house tastes like chlorine. The health department there is regular testing that's done. If there was a problem with the water where it's not potable, they would tell us. So, and they haven't yet. So, and we've passed. There's an annual quality report that summarizes all the tests that are done throughout the year. It's posted on our
At
website.
the end of the letter that they post at the mailboxes, if you do have an autoimmune disease problem, do not drink the water. It says that, do not drink it if you have an autoimmune.
And that's related to this PFAS, right?
Okay.
Okay, so there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, there's connections based on lab testing that they've done that, yes, it's connected to certain forms of cancer. And it is, but it's unfortunately, this is a product, a chemical compound that got into our water system, and it's impacting a lot of residences too. Yeah.
Right, so this is just a.
Private wells, I meant, residences in
Right,
private
and
wells, yeah.
people in town that have private houses probably have the same issue.
Right.
They just don't know.
So let me give you an example.
That's the thing. So
I-
if you have
yeah.
a well, you have the same, the PFAS,
Right.
all the same. things you know about.
Let me give you an example. Mercedes in Goldensbridge, I live right up the hill from them. I live in Goldensbridge. Their project was on hold with the health department because they're also considered a public water system because they have a certain number of employees working there, especially with the new project, and they have to go through the health department for approval. They were now required to test for PFAS. Well, they found PFAS that exceeded the state limits. They had to spend extra money to design a system that's going to go in there. Does that mean that my water has PFAS? Could be. I haven't tested. I do want to test, but I haven't tested it yet. But it's possible, yeah. And I've been drinking it straight out of the ground for 30 years. So.
That's why you're growing.
Well, that's why
One question for me, this will not help with the hardness of the water.
No, carbon doesn't help with hardness, right?
I mean, it's, if it does, it's only by accident, it's not intended for that purpose. So basically the answer is no.
Now, what carbon does do, it'll improve the odor, so like it'll remove odors, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it improves the clarity. It's odor, clarity, taste, it improves taste.
Because it removes all the organics.
All the organics. So even compounds that are not under any regulation today, it removes, I think Bill Bright said something like the 2,500 different compounds that have not been regulated, that are in, potentially in the water, and carbon gets rid of all that. So that's, yeah. So that's the plan. We will keep you all updated. I'll be, sign up for the Oakridge Genome Blast. That's my way to communicate with everybody. And once we come up with numbers or next steps, I'll keep everyone updated. And if anyone has any questions, call me. And come to my office. Any town website, there's a sign up link, click on there. Yeah.
Can you send an updated notice about the town board meeting tonight?
Oh, to Mike. Yeah. Okay.
So he can send.
All right.
notice to everybody.
Make a little note so I don't forget.
Just you changing the town board. minutes for hearing.
Okay. So you see. Okay. Thank you all very much. And thanks everyone.
Spreadsheets, you're gonna circulate them, or we have to find them online?
Yeah. Once we come up, I mean, the presentation I'll post online under the Oakridge. There's an Oakridge page, so I'll post the presentation. The spreadsheet, put some numbers together. I'll take some snapshots because it's really complicated.
Thanks for the help, Tony.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything I can do.
I know it's not easy.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. All right. Goodbye.